All right, let's go do a weather model discussion here for Monday, February the 6th. Hopefully you're back to work. Monday's going well. William Cole here in the Storm Studio, and hopefully you're enjoying this really beautiful weather we have in North Texas as well. Currently 74 degrees nice in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Some of our western counties, some of our cities out there, including the Breckenridge area, now flirting with 80. We'll take a look at those numbers coming up. Of course, this is our behind-the-scenes look at how we're putting together the forecast of the day. This is nothing we put on the channel. We put this on our social media platforms. So again, if you're seeing it there, feel free to give us a like. Feel free to leave a comment below as well. And of course, as always, this segment is brought to you in part by our Patreon subscribers. If you want to become a Patreon subscriber, this segment and also helping to support our mobile app on our channel as well, patreon.com/weathertrackertv. Again, for just $2.99 per month, again, you can become one of our Patreons. And of course, we really appreciate that as well. Of course, not needed to tune into this though. And let's go and dive into this, right? We've got a lot going on. The funny thing is, even though our temperatures are very mild today, again, 70s to near 80, of course, 1 week ago, what were we doing at this exact time? We were getting ready for an ice storm. But this week, our overall pattern is very similar to last week. We have a storm coming in out of the Pacific. It's a slow mover. It's going to give us an opportunity of precipitation tomorrow, Tuesday, into Wednesday. But what is the difference? Even though the pattern looks almost identical on paper, what is the difference? We don't have any Arctic air, right? So the good news is no Arctic air is showing up. Of course, the Arctic air in place is what gave us, again, the freezing rain and the ice storm last week. Again, right now, none of that showing up in the forecast. So for most folks out there, that's good news. I'm sure there's some folks that do like the freezing rain, but again, most of us, we don't, right? Okay, so let's jump into this. First of all, there's a look at downtown Dallas. And again, number one, the thing you may have noticed, again, the morning clouds have given way to some afternoon sun. Of course, the sun is always a key piece of your high temperature or your warming trend through the afternoon. But today, even if we would have stayed generally cloudy, our temperature probably would have been closer to 71, 72, not 74, but we have a strong warming southerly wind, and that's what we call warm air advection. So it's moving up warmer air to our south into the region. So the sun was not totally key to our forecast. In fact, because we're getting a little bit more sun, we're actually overperforming our daytime forecast, right? So our daytime forecast was about 71, 72. We're now at 74. Who knows? We could tap a 75, maybe even a 76. So, and again, it is because we got just a little more sun. Speaking of that, here's numbers around the area, the region here. Laredo, 85. Typically the Rio Grande Valley, they're normally pretty warm, right? Corpus, 80. Again, we're 74 here in the Metroplex. But let's go look at our numbers here locally. And again, where the cloud cover is still just a little bit thicker off to the northeast, you know, our folks up there in Paris, our folks up there in Bonham, Sulphur Springs, still, you know, struggling through the upper 60s to right around 70 there in Sulphur Springs. Again, Metroplex 72, 74. And again, Breckenridge this hour, they're back down to 78. But I know last hour, again, out there in our far western county, they actually tapped 80. So again, flirting with the 80s in our western counties. Again, they've just had more sun, right? The clearing line worked its way from west to east earlier out there, and the air mass, by the way, is just a little bit drier out there as well. You can tell here in the Metroplex we're a little more humid, along with that warming southerly wind I was talking about, the warm air advection. We're also getting Gulf of Mexico moisture, maritime moisture, also pushing up into the area as well. And so again, this morning, even out the door, there was a little bit of patchy fog, and in fact, here in Dallas, there was even a little bit of mist around as well. Again, you could just feel that Gulf of Mexico moisture in the air. Normally when you have that, it's a sign that you've got some changes on the way, and in fact we do. Let me go and show you this. And then we're going to jump into the raw data, right? Typically this segment we do the raw data. I'm just showing you a few of our local maps here, a few of our TV maps here, just to kind of set this whole thing up with what we're going with today, okay? So the true setup now going forward, it's the blue line, it's the cold front coming in. But notice where the cold front extends, right? I mentioned we have a storm coming in from the west, but look at where the cold front goes, right? It goes up into the Midwest, up into the Corn Belt. We've actually got two storm systems across the region. One is up in the Corn Belt, which is pulling the front. Okay, the reason why I'm mentioning this is if you imagine a storm system currently up in the Iowa area, imagine it continuing to pull off to the east over towards the Great Lakes region. As that happens, the cold front that's trailing it, it's going to begin to outrun it. So the cold front, it's going to lose its forward momentum and it's going to stall in North Texas. And that's going to be real key tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, for the potential of some heavier rain as the front stalls in our eastern counties. And then again, we've got that big storm coming in from the west. I'll show you that on the vorticity chart coming up momentarily. But let me go and do this. I want to get you over to this is just the storm prediction page, right? Storm Prediction Center page, SPC. And this is when we're jumping into the raw data now, obviously, right? Convective outlook for today, nothing, right? I mean, we know here locally we're dry, but just around the country, there's nothing really going on. Okay, so we get into tomorrow. Whoops, a little something going on here now, right? So again, we have the storm coming out. The light green would be an opportunity of general thunder, meaning general thunderstorms. The darker shade of green, that would be a marginal risk from the SPC of a couple stronger to maybe even severe storms. And again, wind and a little bit of hail up to quarter size would be the primary concerns. It does include our far southeastern counties. I can tell you, we always take everything the Storm Prediction Center puts out. They're the experts with severe weather. I don't see a lot of severe weather tomorrow, right? That's what a marginal risk means. A marginal risk, they do it by storm quantity, not intensity. So they're saying maybe somewhere within that region that they've outlined, a marginal risk would mean a couple of severe storms. I think truly it's probably going to be south of North Texas, right? But again, marginal risk, a couple of severe storms. So it's basically within their general thinking. Okay, we'll dive into that a little bit more coming up. Let's look at day 3, and there goes the storm by day 3. Again, we're talking about Wednesday pushing off to the east, okay? So let's come over to the model, the raw data. If we're talking about storms and you're saying, well, what is he talking about? Okay, so first we're going to start, as we always do, with the 500 millibar chart, right? This is the mid-levels of the atmosphere, 18,000 feet. We're looking for areas of spin, vorticity, right? Those are areas of low pressure coming in, typically associated with a storm trough, right? So number one, looking out to the west, you can see that storm trough coming in. But also notice to the north, and today's another day we don't have the telestrator. I apologize. We'll get the telestrator turned back on next time we do this, so that way I can draw. We don't have it on here, unfortunately, again today. So I'm really just going to have to explain this to you. But look off to the north as we're looking for areas of spin. You can see we've got the two separate storms, one coming in from the west and then one off to the north up in the Midwest and the Great Lakes. See how there's areas of color up there as well? Again, that's one storm that's going to scoot over towards the Great Lakes region. Again, it's going to outrun the front. The front is going to stall. And then we have the secondary piece of energy. As I roll this back into motion, you can see that secondary piece of energy bigger coming in from the west, right? Okay, so that's the general setup, and you can see it really slows down and it's going to lumber its way through the region, okay? And then on its heels, you see there's another dip coming in. Look at where this one comes from. This one comes out of Canada. It doesn't have Arctic air with it, but it's going to have some cooler air, I'll show you. So that would be our Friday storm. It comes through dry because it comes through right on the heels of the other one, right? I mean, there's a one-day turnaround. We don't have any opportunity to reprime the atmosphere, so it's a dry storm, no chance of any precipitation, but turning cooler. Temperatures dropping on Friday through the 40s. But we do rebound the temperatures pretty quickly into the weekend. The reason why, look directly behind it, what happens? We've got a big ridge. Notice how, again, we have the dip coming in, but literally right on its heels. I mean, the next day, it's out of here. Look at the ridge building in. See how everything goes up into Canada and back down? So that's a quieter pattern, and that's a milder pattern. And so we're going to be in a ridging pattern. There's the weekend taking you through Sunday, take you into Monday, and then next week, Monday into Tuesday, here comes our next opportunity of rain with another Pacific slow-moving storm. And then right on the heels of that one, another one, but it looks like that one's going to come through dry as well because, again, they're just so close. So the spacing on these storms, that the pattern that we're in right now, I mean, there's no turnaround time. I mean, you get a storm, you have another one on its heels, and then if the ridge, for example, as well, the ridge directly on our Friday storm's heels, so we're dry with the ridge and we moderate the temperatures quickly back through the weekend. So these are this is what you call a whipsaw forecast. We've got fast changing weather conditions. None of this major. I mean, we're not talking about major severe weather. We're not talking about major winter weather. We're mainly talking about rain and some up and down temperatures. No Arctic air and no record high temperatures, right? So we're just, we're in a progressive pattern, but none of this is really that big of a deal, right? Okay, so let's continue through time, and then here comes that last storm, again, that I mentioned. It just comes through so quick that it really doesn't look like that one is going to be a wet storm either. It looks like it's going to be dry. Okay, so we know the storms that are coming through, and now, as we always do, through winter, okay, through fall and through winter, and through part of the spring as well, let's match up the air mass with that, okay? This is the 850 millibar chart, just off the surface, and again, we're looking for air mass change with those storms, right? So here comes storm one. Again, you can see the Arctic air well off to the north, right? The blues, the purples, the pinks. I mean, that's the cold stuff off to the north, right? If you're talking about green and blue and yellow, I mean, again, for February, it's about where we should be, right? So you can tell we're going to be changing the air mass, right? And it's mainly a continental air mass change, right? Kind of what we have across the continent, that could be moving around some, but we're not bringing in a true air mass change from the north, okay? So watch this, at least in the near term, what we're talking about with the first storm, right? Okay, so then here comes the next storm out of Canada, and you can see it's got some cooler air, right? This isn't necessarily Arctic air, but there's our cold front for Friday, right? You can see that trough deepen, right? So the cold air pooling down out of Canada, it's spilling down, but it's modifying. It's not really an Arctic blast, but again, temperatures in the 40s. I mean, it'll be chilly on Friday, but again, that's still not crazy. Then directly behind it, here comes the ridge. Look at that. So we move that air mass with that trough right onto the east quickly. There's your weekend. We modify. Okay, so things are looking good. You can even see some yellow building in with the ridging pattern. Okay. And then we'll just keep going. And then here comes that next storm out of the Pacific. You see some blues, again, mainly, a Pacific origin air mass. Truly, at that point in time, it's a continental air mass. So no big deal. Here comes another storm. And again, even with the last storm, remember the one that comes through dry in about 10 days on the heels of that third storm, which would be our fourth storm. Again, it'll be similar to this Friday. There's some chilly air coming, but right now that doesn't necessarily look like Arctic air, right? So we've got some ups, we've got some downs, no big ups, no big downs, and the way it looks right now, we're talking about rain with maybe some thunder each of those days. No wintry and no real organized opportunity of severe weather, right? So again, on a scale of 1 to 10, we don't have anything, jumping off the Richter scale that, again, we're going to be overly concerned about, right? But we've got weather. We've got active weather, over the next 10 days, okay? So all of that, pretty doable, okay? So now let's look at precip. Let's kind of keep all of that in mind. Let's just roll through the precip. Here's tomorrow. We'll look at the high-res data for tomorrow, and we got to speed this up just a little bit. I've still got to do our real deal weather coming up too. We'll look at the high-res data. This is tomorrow. This is the Euro model first, and this is just a high-res look at everything. But we're going to, I'm sorry, this is not. This is a global model. We're going to look at the high-res data coming up momentarily. Let me just go and speed through this. Sorry, while I was saying that, I was actually thinking of one other graphic that we need to do for our actual show on the air. So not to confuse you, but again, we'll come back and look at tomorrow and Thursday with the high-res data. So we're skipping ahead. We're dry Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay, and then here we go. As we get into Monday, here comes our next storm. And I've upped the probabilities. I think with the newest data coming in, there's your Tuesday morning. So Monday night into Tuesday with our next front. I mean, I think there's going to be a more likely opportunity of rain. Similar scenario to this up to Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. It's a slow-moving front. It kind of stalls, and there's an opportunity of heavier rain zone to set up. So we're kind of in a repeat pattern. We're kind of doing the same thing over and over. I mean, even this week we're doing the same thing as last week, but there's just no Arctic air, right? So again, those are truly your opportunities of rain. I want to show you the high res data again, not to confuse you on this because we're kind of going back and forth on this. This is the high res data for tomorrow, Tuesday into Wednesday. And let me go and show you that. And again, this is as the front arrives. We're just kind of scrolling through. This is current. There's the front up in Oklahoma. And this will be by 8 a.m. tomorrow, 7 a.m. tomorrow. Again, you can see widely scattered showers. Here's the front moving through. So again, tomorrow just looks unsettled. I mean, it's nothing crazy. But again, you can see the coverage increase, mainly in our eastern counties. That's as the front stalls. Tuesday night, this is 1 a.m. Wednesday morning. As the front stalls over there, there's going to be an opportunity of training of just moderate to heavy rain. And that's where rainfall projections appear to be heaviest before we taper everything off on Wednesday. Okay, so again, this is not some super crazy high-end event. You see it as well. There's not some overexcited opportunity of severe weather. In fact, let's go and look at the instability for tomorrow as well. And let me just make sure, I just want to make sure I'm on the extended run. And this is just the HER model that I'm using, the high resolution rapid refresh. And this is updated hourly. And every 6 hours, this will go out for 48 hours. So there's your instability. I mean, this is late day. I mean, down towards Waco. I mean, this is mainly south of our coverage area. Here in the Metroplex, I mean, we've got about 200 joule. I mean, there's a teeny tiny touch of instability, right? Could we have a few claps of thunder? Yes. Again, like I said, the red in our southern counties right now I think is just a little misleading. I do think south of us, again, towards Waco, down towards Austin, maybe down towards San Antonio, there may be a better opportunity of, again, some active weather down there, kind of within the rain probabilities, right? But for us, I mean, I really think we're going to stay just general thunderstorms, okay, and some heavier rain. Okay, so there's your instability. Front comes through and again takes the instability with it. From there, I want to jump back over to the Euro, and I just want to take a look at rainfall totals through 10 days, right? So everything combined, what does the Euro think we're going to do as far as rainfall goes? And again, over 10 days, I mean 2 to 4 inches. Here in the Metroplex, I mean, that's not bad. Keep in mind most of that with that secondary event. And again, that's still, 7, 8 days on down the road. So you still have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. So our first event tomorrow into Wednesday, again, around 1 inch, okay? Around 1 inch is what the Euro is saying. And then again, we have a similar scenario where the front stalls. Again, that's going to be the following Monday and Tuesday. And again, you see it kind of go crazy then with the totals. This far out, don't get too locked into that because if the front's a little bit further east or the front doesn't stall, again, you're not going to get those super high-end, what we call QPFs or rainfall totals, right? So still a bit of an asterisk on that secondary rain event. Okay, from there, let's look at the raw data, at the numbers here. And so pretty similar to what we have, what I just finished a 12-day just a little bit ago. So 64 tomorrow. As the front comes through and there's rain and storms, those temperatures will ease down. It's kind of an early day high, right? It's one of those days that's a little misleading. We're not dropping into the 30s. It won't be anything crazy like that, but the temperatures will ease down. Cooler on Wednesday behind the system, nothing major, 53. Can you guys see that? I'm just making sure you can see that. So we rebound on Thursday. Friday, 52. I've actually got us at 49. The temperatures will be dropping on Friday, and we will be dropping into the 40s. But again, with the ridging pattern directly on its heels, look at your Saturday, look at your Sunday. I mean, we rebound back into the 50s, back into the 60s, so that's no big deal. Then you can see early next week we'll be in the 60s with that next rain opportunity. And again, this time of year when you have some 60s, could there be some instability? There's nothing there that says anything would be favorable for severe weather or organized severe weather, but could we have a few thunderstorms? Could we have a couple strong storms? Not impossible during that time, but again, organized severe weather just doesn't really look likely. There's really no air mass change with that, right? In fact, the following Wednesday were even warmer, but again, by the end of that work week, right? Not this work week, but the following work week, that final storm that we were talking about there, that'll have a bit more of a push of some chillier air. So going into the following weekend, I would anticipate temperatures trending down, most likely back into the 40s, right? So again, whipsaw forecast, some ups, some downs, nothing major. Hopefully some pretty good rain opportunities. Again, no high-end concerns with that. And right now, no wintry precipitation and no Arctic air showing up. So it's a pretty decent forecast, again, the way it looks from here. So again, like I said, I hate to really rush through this too much, but we've got to get on with our other weather of the day as well. Of course, if you have not downloaded our free Weather Tracker TV DFW mobile app, again, be sure to do that today. It is available in your Apple iTunes store, also the Google Play Store. Of course, it's completely free, but again, feel free to download it today. Also, again, another big thanks to our Patreon subscribers. And again, if that's something you want to sign up for, again, just a reminder, patreon.com/weathertrackertv. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your Monday. Try and get out and do something outdoors this evening. Temperatures, by the way, will be easing down through the 60s this evening. Really just a great looking evening.